At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
Hi, this is Colie Brice for The Heart of Hollywood on themusic.com. Today it is my distinct honor and privilege to sit down with a tremendous music aficionado, a writer, a director, a producer, and even a songwriter, and one of the biggest hearts in Hollywood, Mr. Cameron Crowe. Cameron, thanks for your time, and we appreciate this opportunity to speak with you.
You too, Colie. Very, very, professionally announced, I have to say.
It must have been that 101 course at the community college back in Jersey. I don't know. It's carried me far.
Good.
To your office, even.
I need to get that address. I want to be that professional and that concise in my own life.
Wow. So what have you been up to lately?
Just writing. Been at home writing. Getting ready for the next movie, listening to a lot of music and catching up.
What have you been listening to? Anything new? Anything old?
Actually, I raked through my whole kind of collection. I was taking a train trip from L.A. to Seattle.
That sounds nice.
It was really, really great. And I got to say, trains are not completely up to millennium, impersonal millennium standards. They're really kind of still rickety, and the whistle blows, and it's a whole thing, and they stop a zillion times.
It's a nicer pace of life, I think.
It is, and I was going to make one, tape of, 1C120, and it turned into 6.5 hours of tape, so I just, stuff from all eras, and, just trying to catch up and comb through my old favorites, some of which are on the Almost Famous soundtrack, I must say.
Oh, good. Before I forget, I want to congratulate you on the overwhelming success of Vanilla Sky.
Thanks.
There was some critics that were really throwing darts at you, and It seems like you and Tom Cruise really went out of your way to just get off your ass and promote that movie and just really make it happen.
Yeah, it was a strange experience. It's like the movie came out in the Christmas season, and I think nothing could have really prepared people for what the movie was really like. And some people were shocked, some people were kind of entranced, some people were confused, but everybody wanted to talk to us about it. And I thought, let's talk to them. So we went and we found people that hated the movie and really engaged in dialogue with them, hugged very tightly the people that loved it and thanked them.
Of course.
But no, it was really interesting to hear people's opinions, and they generally changed in some distinct way after they saw it more than once.
I read one review on the web that was privately written that described it as a psychological equivalent to surround sound.
Wow, I missed that one.
I
could have used that one.
New media, new age era acid trip. Without the hangover.
It is. But there is a hangover. The movie does have a little bit of a
physically.
hangover. Yeah. But and it's sort of like, time spent inside a guy's brain. The music, the sounds, the anxiety, the fear, the impulses to murder, the impulses to love, and we really were trying some stuff out. It's sort of a genre movie that is genre-less. And that angered some people and delighted others.
Well, I think a lot of artists really appreciated someone at your level of stature and empowerment to take a chance like that. So
thanks.
I think a lot of people applaud you for being brave about that film and
Thanks.
actually doing something that had some meaning and stimulated some thought that doesn't happen often in the theater, unfortunately.
I appreciate that. I hope to keep doing it.
The soundtrack was amazing as well.
Thanks.
And I know that you had the opportunity to meet recently remarried Sir Paul McCartney. And actually, I'll let you tell the story, but he actually ended up writing the title track, correct?
Yeah. I never thought he was going to show up. Danny Bramson, who works on the movies with us and helps on the music, he kept threatening that Paul McCartney was going to come by our editing room. And I just... It's not the kind of thing you want to prepare for, or because it's not going to happen. Right. And then one day he showed up. It was almost exactly a year ago. And he sat exactly where you're sitting right now in our office and just said, tell me a little bit about the movie. And I said, well, maybe you should see some of it. And he was like, yeah, great, let's do it, yeah. And nobody in the office knew he was coming, so I walked down the hallway to the actual editing room, just down the ways a little bit. And I had this amazing experience where I got to see the way Paul McCartney sees the world looking at him. Because I was sort of walking right next to him, and I saw people slowly realize it was Paul McCartney in the office. And the facial contortions are really interesting. It goes from shock to like a replay of Beatlemania love to disbelief to strange, tortured, where's he going and is he coming back feelings. And then it just kind of melts into, whoa. And he's really friendly and accessible, and he saw about 45 minutes of the movie, and then said, you should think about using some stuff from the Driving Rain album, which he was then recording. He said, follow me across town back to the studio, and I'll play some of the stuff. So,
and you're like, okay.
Yeah. We're like, yeah, I think we can do that. And he said, I won't try and do an imitation of Paul, but he said, follow me, I'm in this black Corvette, and if you get lost, the advance car, which is with my buddy and the security guy, it's that electric yellow PT Cruiser over there. We call it the Yellow Submarine. So just follow the Yellow Submarine. I'm like, okay, that sounds good. I think I'll remember that. And once we were in the car, I called my wife, who's like, the huge Beatle fan and the huge Paul fan of all time, and I'm like, I'm in the car right now on Olympic Boulevard following Paul McCartney and the Yellow Submarine. And she's, no! And I think it's good to be a fan sometimes. It's a lot of the time I think it's good to be a fan. And I was always a John guy. And then I started to tilt towards Paul, and then a little bit to George. It's something that I actually put in Vanilla Sky. Where you are in your life sort of determines who your Beatle is. And the funny thing is, spending time around Paul McCartney, I sort of realized that he's a John guy. He admires and still kind of chases after the dream of Lennon too. He was a fan of Lennon that actually got to be in the band. And just little things like that came through like spending time around the guy. Right. I didn't spend a lot of time around him, but I found him to be great and really generous, and I felt comfortable enough to ask him to write a song for the movie that he had just seen 45 minutes of. And if something came to him, I'd love to get an original song. And everybody in the studio, when I said that, was kind of looking at me like,
wow,
whoa. That's
Balls
sort of a
steel.
Ballsy thing, I think he's trying to get you to use something from the album he's already recorded.
And you're right, one might be grateful just for that.
And I was and everything, but he's so accessible. And then that was like on a Tuesday, and on a Saturday he called Danny's cell phone and said, "Yeah, it's Paul McCartney. Hey, be careful what you ask me, because the type of guy I am is like this. I come through for people. So you asked me for a new song. I've written one. I called it Vanilla Sky. And if you don't like it, I'll just change the title to Manila Envelope. And come on over and hear it." So we went screaming across town again, and he played it for us. And it sort of perfectly caught the metaphor of the movie, The Banquet of Life. And it was exactly what we needed for the end, because the acid trip you so aptly mentioned needed a cool down period, and that became Paul's song.
Wow.
Yeah, it's cool. Plus, I heard it on tour, and the song sort of improved the more he's played it, because the record is the first time he played it. So,
he's kind of seasoned and coming into its own as he plays it out live.
It's good, and it's just kind of an otherworldly experience to see Paul McCartney singing a song with the Beatlesque title that you came up with, influenced by the Beatles, and there's Paul singing Vanilla Sky. I keep thinking he's going to put the guitar down and say, That was a me title, wasn't it? You owe me some money for that or something. But how would I give him money? Because he ended up writing the song, and he figured out how to seize the moment.
That's amazing. That is truly an amazing.
I love that he went right for the title song, too. Which I didn't say, please write a title song. I said, please write an original song. And he went right for the title.
That's stunning. I think a lot.
Trippy.
Yeah, I'd say that's as trippy as you get. And I mean, you've met everybody, but still, you can, even talking to you now, you could tell that was just another level of penetration of your psyche. Like, whoa, it's Paul.
Yeah, but I think if you never lose the fan, you just never want to be the guy that if by amazing occurrences you get to meet some of your heroes, you should never be so consumed with trying to be cool that you don't appreciate the moment as it's happening. And I think I always was a guy who, while attempting to as a journalist, while attempting to represent people like me who wondered what it would be like to have a front row seat to the lives of bands they loved, I had journalistic objectivity, I thought, but also come on, if it's Led Zeppelin or Neil Young, the managers and people used to say to me, you've seen this show 5 or 6 times. You don't feel the need, don't feel duty bound to stand on the side of the stage and watch the show every night. And I'm like, duty bound? What else am I going to do? It's just Neil Young is standing 12 feet away. Well,
Right.
What am I going to go, find a bowling alley in Madison, Wisconsin? No, I mean, this is my life. I love music, and this is an opportunity. I'm going to catch every moment of it.
So you've always had kind of a reverent stewardship type philosophy towards the opportunities you've had.
I think so. The one time an editor told me, you got to go out and rip somebody just to kind of, supply some yang to your yin. You got to go out and rip somebody. I actively sought out a band that I didn't care for to try and get a journalistic perspective on them. I spent I think I spent 5 days on the road with this band, and it was, an exercise in negativity and not my thing. The band was Bachman Turner Overdrive, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was kind of a.
They must have been pretty huge at that time too.
They were really huge. And I remember Randy Bachman, because I loved the Guess Who. Randy Bachman, who was this devout religious guy, told me the greatest dirty joke. It was so, wonderfully. I actually ended up learning. Bob Seger was opening for them, and Bob Seger was just completely struggling every night to win over the audience. And I sort of understood their whole world and the contradictions built into Bachman Turner Overdrive. But the story came out kind of, begrudgingly. It existed begrudgingly, and I just felt like this doesn't serve anybody. And I think they loved the story, though, which is the irony.
What else on that soundtrack did you like in particular? What were some of your favorite things on the Vanilla Sky soundtrack?
I love Mark Kozlik and the Red House Painters, and I love any new music from Mark and his band. So I love that that's out there. Mark was in Almost Famous, so Mark sort of became part of our vinyl films world, which is nice. Let me look at it.
Yeah, speaking of vinyl, the album actually was put out on a 2 LP set as well. How did that come to be?
Well, we are big fans of your work and classic records and vinyl in general.
I set him up for that, folks. That's classicrecords.com.
He actually didn't. That's me stepping right out and stating it. It's these discs. I mean, Classic Records did Almost Famous and Vanilla Sky both, and they're sort of lovingly reproduced, and they really live up to the thing that you want, which is a souvenir you can hold as well as the music that matters to you. And I really like that there's stuff to look at and things to get lost in. And, so often in the CD experience, you get hung up in the tabs that break off and the booklets that don't quite fit under the flaps, and it just becomes a technical experience.
And that damn thing you have to take off that adhesive strip on the beginning.
Yeah,
you end up cracking the case.
I've made peace with that. And now it's just it's just too small.
Yeah.
It's too small.
When your company earns unlimited 2% cash back on all purchases with Capital One, that's serious business. So Stephen at SandCloud got a serious business card, the Spark Cash Plus card from Capital One.
We used our 2% cash back to help build our retail presence.
Savvy, Stephen.
And we get big purchasing power, so our business can spend more and earn more.
The Spark Cash Plus card from Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms and conditions apply. Find out more at CapitalOne.com/SparkCashPlus.
Well, some people
and it doesn't sound as good.
So you definitely have a genuine preference for vinyl, sound-wise?
Absolutely.
As well as the aesthetic of the packaging and everything?
We try and use vinyl, and did a lot on Almost Famous. We try and use vinyl as the source on the music as much as possible, and it probably balances out with all the digital traveling that it has to make ultimately, but still we just know that the genesis was in vinyl. And when we've used Genesis, it was on vinyl musically. I think we did once use Genesis. But the thing is, to me, Neil Young said the greatest thing about CD versus vinyl, which is, I don't know if you've heard this, but he said a CD is like 1,000 little pellets of hail hitting you in the face, and vinyl is rain, which to me sort of says it best. There's a warmth and naturalness to vinyl that I can't get enough of.
The interesting thing about it, too, is that you can't copy it the way you can copy a CD onto MP3 or distribute digital stuff over a residential broadband connection. Either you're having a vinyl analog experience or you're not. So I wonder if that will kind of seed the resurrection of vinyl as a more viable mainstream media format.
I hope so.
Me too.
Yeah, no, I mean it becomes, the odd thing is that vinyl has taken the whole journey where it started out as kind of this slightly illicit thing, a way that you could appreciate music, and now it is again, because it's hard to access vinyl. It's harder than CDs. But I have not answered your question about songs on the Vanilla Sky soundtrack.
Well, I remember when I was in the studio actually working on that at Bernie Grumman's, I noticed in particular when we heard the finished product on, say, for instance, the Radiohead song, the imaging and the spatial stuff was it just leapt out of the speakers on the LP more so. I mean, it was a startling difference.
Yeah. It's it's wonderful to have the opportunity to hear that and get that different experience. Radiohead was an important part of the movie. We were listening to Kid A the whole time we were shooting it, and in fact, the first scene of Vanilla Sky, if you played just the sound from what we filmed, it would be the same thing, because Tom's acting to the song, which is playing on a boombox that Scott Martin, who works with us, is holding, and we did a lot of filming to music actually playing, and a lot of that's represented, on the discs.
So you used it to actually stimulate moods for your actors and to get in character?
Always. And most of the time on Vanilla Sky, the music that you're hearing is exactly what they were listening to while they were doing it. Last Goodbye, Jeff Buckley was an example of that. Can We Still Be Friends, Todd Rundgren. I love Todd Rundgren. I've been trying to work Todd Rundgren like a real
He's
bulk
a
of Todd.
recurring theme in your soundtrack.
Yeah. But there's never enough Todd.
He's got for me. That sound too. It's very distinctive.
Yeah,
and it captures a definite mood and flavor that it really works with your stuff.
Thanks.
Like throughout the tenure of all the things you've done, it would seem.
It's funny. A lot of times, music is it's like relationships you've had in your life, in that somebody will come out, or you'll meet somebody, or you'll hear a piece of music and you'll just hate it. You'll hate it. You'll look at the person's picture and you'll go, I hate the way he looks. I hate the way she sings. let me hear it again. You know what I mean? And
Right, 'cause
like,
it just-
now I sort of, let me put this thing on for you that I heard yesterday. And all of a sudden, your most intense musical kind of experiences, you realize began in hatred or extreme dislike. I was that way with Tommy, the album by The Who, and I was that way with Todd because he sort of looked like me and he seemed sort of precious when I first heard him, and he was calling himself, a wizard and a true star and everything. And I was like, forget this guy. What else has he done?
Right.
And so now, it's sort of, he's so indelibly a part of like the human experience for me or something.
Yeah, I guess a lot of times it's our own ego scars that kind of get agitated by something that's really something that we're looking at within ourselves.
That's right. Hey. Cool. But it's so true,
Hey, man, could you pass that over, dude?
Yeah. But isn't it funny, though, that music is that personal and is still that personal,
And that powerful.
And that powerful. And so Todd kind of strikes that chord always with me. Love the Porpoise song from Head, the Monkees. Really great that we were able to put that on a contemporary record.
I think it's also good to give the public another shot of hearing another dimension of the Monkees.
Yeah.
The fact that there was this ambitious artistic experiment period they went through where they're like, screw all this, we really are a real band.
Yeah.
I guess people could debate what the results are, but it was an ambitious kind of, it was kind of like and I don't know enough about this, and you can correct me because I'm probably wrong, but it seems like they were so inspired by the stuff that was going on with like the Pet Sounds and what the Beatles were doing with Sgt. Pepper, and they're like, damn it, we want to put our best foot forward too.
Yeah.
It seems like they really put an effort in.
They did, and some of that stuff really holds up, and I get some kind of strange private satisfaction that we actually were able to put out a soundtrack with McCartney and the Monkees both on it,
Yeah, that's true.
So it's funny. Over time, everything melds together, I guess. Sigur Rós, we really listened to a lot of their stuff while we were making the movie and couldn't find the right song to end Vanilla Sky. And while we were editing, the band came to town and played at the El Rey Theater, I think it was. No, the Wilshire Theater here. And the third song they did was Nasavalin, the Nothing song, which they hadn't recorded, but we found on a bootleg. And it's actually a bootleg recording of that song that fuzzes out at the perfect moment and everything that ends Vanilla Sky. So that movie was really a musical experience for all of us, I think. All of us who made it.
Well, another consistent contributor to your soundtracks would seem to be your wife herself, Nancy Wilson.
Yeah.
She's a consistent muse.
Yeah.
That's prevalent in, I don't know if all of your soundtracks, but certainly the lion's share of them.
Yeah, she's always a part of the writing and honing of the scripts, and we sort of live through the experience together, and she's one of my favorite guitarists, was before I even met her. I love the way she plays acoustic and electric too. She's an amazing acoustic player. Like, she and Paul Simon, I think, are some of the two of the great underappreciated, masterful acoustic players. So there's this amazing, and beautiful resource that I live with, where I can go into the kitchen and say, can we do something along the lines of The Graduate here? And she'll say, oh, I'm making coffee. And I'll say, just here's a guitar. And she'll say, oh, okay, and just bang out something that's so perfect that it never changes. And she was the same way when we were writing music for Almost Famous. We wrote the Stillwater songs together. And she's music flows through her, so it's part of the connective tissue of the movies.
I think one of the interesting abilities about her contributions, particularly to Vanilla Sky and the acoustic repertoire on Almost Famous as well, for obvious reasons, those are the ones I'm most familiar with. But one of the interesting observations that I think are worth noting is she has kind of a chameleon-like ability to provide a cohesion to this kind of eclectic array of soundscape that you provide with all these different separate artists with very distinctive sounds of their own. And something about her acoustic segues in between kind of brings it back to a central theme that kind of makes it work. So you better be nice to her, dude.
I am. I'm hanging on with my fingernails. No, it's true. I mean, I wish more people noticed that, frankly. Her stuff is so chameleon-like that
that's
it blends
probably the
in.
beauty of it, that it's not noticed. That
True.
She does it so well that it's not.
Her stuff gets bootlegged a lot. Sound editors pass it around and give it to other scoring artists making movies in Hollywood and say, give me something like this. And people now openly kind of say to me, yeah, I worked on this movie where the guy said, let's rip off Nancy Wilson. And
like when they typically say, try and cop this kind of vibe. Or
yeah.
whatever.
But I just love that they're not even trying to hide it from us anymore. They just kind of openly say it. So I think the time has come for her to put out a disc of her own stuff, so that people can hear her music on its own, because it really does create a mood when you hear all of her stuff together from Say Anything through Vanilla Sky. It's very powerful, and it's right up there with some of the best scoring, soundtrack
Must
scored
be some
discs.
amazing outtakes too. Stuff that we've never heard.
Yeah. There's even outtakes of stuff from Say Anything, songs that Lily Taylor sang that didn't make it into the movie, that are just really hilarious, kind of long before it was an archetype. The warbling female songstress with songs of wounded love. Nancy, with a tiny bit of input from me, had done all these great songs. Like, there's this one that's, I think we finally put out on the new DVD of Say Anything, called He Hurts Me. That's so great. Lily Taylor's singing it, and we filmed it, and she's like, he hurts me. It's just kind of bad, great, warmed over, pseudo Patti Smith. It's really good. You had to be there, Colie.
No, I'm sorry, I was reading my notes here. I wanted to change directions for a minute, actually.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I know you
He hurts me.
Cameron's had a long day, folks.
Once I started singing, it's too bad you can't be here to see the like gray wall that came up over his eyes when I started singing.
No,
panic. It's panic. I'm sorry.
You kidding? I'm going to sell this as a downloadable MP3. I can make a fortune. Get someone to sample.
From me buying it myself. Hey, listen to me.
I know.
Yes, Colie.
Now we're getting back to the serious part of the interview, if possible. I know a couple months ago you spoke at and even presided over, to some degree, a memorial service for Billy Wilder.
Mm-hmm.
Have been reading the book that you wrote, the interview-style book about his life, and it's very obvious the warmth and regard. It just kind of pervades. It just kind of flows off the page when you're reading it. Not even being acclimated to this man's work at all, or not being in the film business. One of the things I thought was interesting, you with your great background in rock and roll and your love and interest in it, you had mentioned it to him, and he kind of had no interest in it whatsoever. If you had the chance to, and he were amenable to it, what are like 3 songs that you would have played for him, just for him to just digest and at least consider it?
Whoa, that's a great question. I probably would have tried to play him some Brian Wilson, though the introspective side of some of Brian's greatest stuff probably wouldn't have resonated with Billy. Billy was kind of the personal stuff, This is good for a letter to your parents, but
He's not into the self-absorbed artist thing.
No, he didn't. Although his movies were personal in very hidden ways. But just for the sake of having played Billy Wilder, some of the great Brian Wilson stuff, I'd probably want to play him. something like I Just Wasn't Made for These Times. He ended up finding his own first favorite rock song in the year before he died.
Is that right?
Yeah, he was in Johnny Rockets having a hamburger, and he heard "Are You Lonesome Tonight," which you have to say is part of the rock era.
Sure.
So he heard Elvis Presley singing "Are You Lonesome Tonight," and he was like, "Who's this? Who's this? This is good. It's a waltz. It's just good." And they're like, "Billy, it's Elvis Presley." "Oh, well, that's okay. It's good. It's good. Give me more of this man, Elvis Presley."
Yeah, because he had mentioned in the book that he didn't particularly care for Elvis at the
Didn't
time.
maybe a little bit the freshness of the Beatles around the time of Hard Day's Night, but I don't think he ever heard them. He liked the idea of them.
Right.
But anyway, so he sought out a greatest hits recording from Elvis Presley and listened to all this stuff and said, "No, I don't like the Hound Dog song. I don't like the Jailhouse song. No, just the Are You Lonesome Tonight," which is cool. So he did find a song from the rock era that he liked. I might play him a little Zeppelin, and I'd probably play him some blues. Probably play him Robert Johnson or something, and say, here's where a lot of stuff came from, and just so he'd know.
You think he'd appreciate the improvisational quality of the blues?
What he would probably appreciate would be the elegance of some of those great songs, the elegant pain of the songs. I think he'd
The authenticity and the depth of it.
Authenticity, depth, and structure. He's a big structure guy. So probably the improv stuff wouldn't strike him as much as the textbook stuff of the blues, where you just see where so many other things began, the structure of the blues.
I think I recently read another interview that you had done, where you had said something to the effect that at one time the most desirable occupation was to be president,
Mm-hmm.
and then it was rock star,
Yeah.
and recently you found out that the most desirable occupation was film director.
Right.
What advice do you have for aspiring creative types?
Go be a rock star. We need more rock stars.
Stay out of my business.
Stay out of my business. Pick up a guitar. God damn it. No. Write the thing that only you can write, which is to say, try not to make a movie that's really based on another movie, which in a way I violated with Vanilla Sky, because that was a cover of somebody else's film, but it was something I wanted to try, and we sort of had our different chords we wanted to put into the cover song. But generally, the movies that people remember are the stuff that's ripped from your life and that only you could have written. The things that I've written that people responded to the most, right down the line, were the things that I was almost too embarrassed to put on the page.
So when you're getting that squirmy feeling in your gut, that's what you got to let out.
Yeah. Then again, there some people, maybe their psyche, maybe their psyche being downloaded on film wouldn't be an enjoyable experience
For any of us.
for any of us. But my only advice is, it's just, it comes down to campfire stories in a way. It comes down to two people sitting across a table and one person says, the weirdest thing happened to me yesterday. And a movie is like that. It's one person talking to another. And as soon as you believe that you have to speak to everybody, in a way you're speaking to nobody,
Do you think the increasing prevalence of residential broadband access and cheap digital technology, people being able to buy a $600 digital camera and
Mm-hmm.
go into a DVD authoring thing on their Mac, do you think that's ultimately going to be good for film and creativity, or what do you think the manifestation is going to be of all these people being able to have this much creative empowerment?
It means more poetry and probably less lives truly lived, in a way. Somebody's got to write about real life. Somebody's got to not film people that know they're being filmed. Some people, somebody's got to write a book, or write some actual poetry so that there's diversity. But basically giving people tools, I think, is a great thing. It's just what you use the tools to write about. There's it's one of those things that Steely Dan wrote about a long time ago in Showbiz Kids, Showbiz kids making movies about themselves. They don't give a fuck about anybody else. That's the downside of everybody having the technology.
Well, I think that statement lends itself to going back to where you suggested becoming a rock star. Can we have rock stars again?
Sure. I think everybody's just waiting for...
No, but you know what I mean? Like with the media culture and everything, and you have 18-year-old kids trying to write their first song, and they're writing a how to write a hit rock song in the key of G book, and they're got their webpage manual how to do this, and
it's true.
Like taking marketing courses at their local college. What can seed and inspire authenticity now?
Another great question. I think you just have to trust that it will happen, because as long as we all have a beating heart, you're going to seek out your own unique way of expressing what's inside of you, and you got to trust that happens, and new avenues will show up to be vivid and rebellious and actually say something, but what you can't be is the guy who says, "Oh, in my day it was like this," or even to an extent, singing the praises of vinyl. Well, not really, because vinyl is vivid and vinyl is current, and it's good to celebrate that. But you can't be the person that tries to put the genie back in the bottle, because the genie's out of the bottle, and you have to trust in new creative hearts finding a way to scream what's inside of them, and that's going to transcend the many, many, many others that have the web page, that read the book, that goes upstairs from their own basement and mom and dad are listening to their music in a desperate attempt to stay current. Everybody listens to everything now. Everybody listens to the same music pretty much. I'm reading this book, The Corrections, right now, and there's the greatest passage about this guy who's fallen in love with a young co-ed whose parents were in a punk band together and fell in love. And the bitterness of this guy who's coming face to face with the child of his former rebellion, because he's older than the co-ed, is just so perfect. There's so little there that you can call your own right now in music, and because it's like what I was just blabbing on about a second ago. Everything is meant to be for everybody. Movies are always supposed to be for a huge opening night on Friday night. Records, each record that comes out now that has a little bit of creativity to it, it's got to save the record business. The best stuff that I ever heard is stuff that was written for one person.
How do you personally deal with that, being in the position you're in where you do get a chance to play with these huge budgets and you do have the chance to do that film? Where do you make your compromises, or how do you go about being sensitive and obviously pragmatic about the reality of being in the business that you're in, but also serving your artistic integrity?
Billy Wilder did it. He wrote very idiosyncratic movies and sometimes worked with big stars and sometimes didn't, and they were always playing on his court. And I think you can work with a big star. Wes Anderson showed that he could work with bigger stars and still be as personal as ever in The Royal Tenenbaums. I think it's a case-by-case basis, but what I'm probably proudest of is that every time I've made a movie, we've ended up in a room with the marketing department who says, I have no idea, we as a group have no idea how to sell this movie. There's not really a movie like it that we can, think of.
Isn't that the first thing that they could market?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Originality? I don't know.
But they can't, they it's all about getting people in on opening night, and and showing them that the water is warm, man. It's just like it was when you left it back at 4 Weddings and a Funeral, you know, but they're always so frustrated because they say your stuff really isn't its own. It really isn't a genre we can access because it's sort of like life. How do you sell life? And I always kind of like shake my head solemnly along with the solemnly shaking heads in the room, but I privately think like it's going to scare me to death the day I'm in this room and they say, we love it, we know how to sell it. It's just like blank. You know, so it's a battle that you fight. But I'm just lucky that I've done stuff that people remember enough so that they've supported the movies in the past, and I'm able to say people turned up to see this movie, or say anything, you know, people discovered later, and they still rented a lot and it made money. And I think all of my movies, my 5 movies, have all made their money back, you know. So that's a cool thing to be able to say. This movie that you can't sell is part of a tradition of movies that nobody's been able to sell that have done okay.
I'm going to do a little flashback on you right now. And I'm going to hand you the LP for Song Remains the Same, which you wrote the liner notes for. In what year?
75, I think. Is that the year of this? 77, right.
So about 25 years ago.
That's scary. The tour was 75, wasn't it? I beg that you edit this so
we will.
So I get the dates right. This was Led Zeppelin at Madison Square Garden. What year? Because they held on to this for a while. Was it 73 or 75?
I honestly don't know. I think... that can be a...
Ask me the question
that'll be
again.
A poll
I'll cover
on
it.
our website.
Yeah.
Help Cameron.
76. I think it was 70... It was 73.
73.
Okay, so ask me the question again, please.
Okay. So, Cameron, I'm going to do a little flashback on you, and I'm going to hand you the soundtrack for Led Zeppelin's The Song Remains the Same. What goes through your mind when you take a look at the work you did all those years ago compared to where you are now?
This is one of the rare kind of documents of Led Zeppelin live. One of the great live bands ever. Woefully underrepresented, even now, these many years later, with live recordings. You know, I think we've all had to kind of live on crazy bootlegs, or this album, or when they put out the BBC sessions a couple of years ago.
Right.
But what goes through my head is that it wasn't the greatest show and it wasn't the worst show. It was kind of a middling Led Zeppelin show that happened on the night where they had all the equipment and stuff.
So it was like a median composite of what it was.
Yeah, and still, it's a vivid reminder of how great this band was live. And mercurial, sets changed night to night. There was no video playback or anything. You know,
so there was
sound like Grandpa talking about it.
There was a jam band element to the whole thing.
There was a jam band element, and what was also interesting about this period is now we take Led Zeppelin for granted. They're an institution. They're almost a franchise. Everybody knows Led Zeppelin. They were much more of a contraband experience back then. They never even took ads for their concerts. There was no official announcement that Led Zeppelin was coming to your town. It was all word of mouth.
Right.
And
this was before email for
yeah, and they sold out instantly. Fast Times at Ridgemont High, the book, is based on a year in the life of a high school that was preparing for a 1979 concert by Led Zeppelin. A concert that was canceled when John Bonham died. The original title, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, was Stairway to Heaven.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, and that was the whole genesis of that book, which gave me a career in,
which brought
books
you to
and
everything
movies.
else we talked about today.
Which is really cool. So much of that so much of the good stuff that happened to me has its basis in Led Zeppelin. And this was, I was one of the few journalists that they allowed to tour with them. It was Lisa Robinson, who wrote for Hit Parader and some magazines in New York.
And New York Post, I think.
And New York Post. Yeah. And me. And I'd written some freelance stories on them. And they were like, yeah, have this guy tour with us. So I toured with him in 73 and 75 and wrote about him around the time that this disc came out. These two discs came out. Song Remains the Same. That was when they were recording Presents, when the movie and soundtrack album came out. And they were in a dark period back then. But this was kind of the document that they, you know, honoring a commitment to the fans. Okay, here's a live album from us. And my recollection was that they wished it had been a better show. But all the fans that heard it said, trust us, it's fine, you know.
Yeah.
And
gratefully accepted.
Yeah, and I just have real indelible memories of touring with Led Zeppelin, some of which is there in the movie of Almost Famous, and some of which I've never written about. It was an amazing time.
Will that be the sequel?
Are
you going to go from like untitled to entitled?
Yeah, that's right.
Where the guy gets rich as like rock star wife. He's doing great. Everything.
Boy, if the true version could only come out, it would be so. Don't get me started.
Well, your
No,
whole
it's
life,
fun.
you seem like you've been kind of on this psychic, synchronous vibe trail or something with all the connections of everything that's happened.
It's funny, you know. I read something
You
recently.
seem very intuitive. You trust your gut,
Thanks.
you know.
It's I read something the other day. I just picked up a magazine at the grocery store, and some guy was really ripping on Vanilla Sky, and they go, Cameron Crowe, you know, he's led such a charmed life, and it was kind of odd to read it because
Well, you know the alternate reality.
it's hard, you know, it was hard to kind of make a path, you know, from early days of journalism through making movies now, but it's always fun. It's always fun because you're basically chasing your greatest hobby, which is movies, books, or film, or love, you know. And so happily I read that, and happily I think to myself, well, I wish it was that easy or seemed that easy. But it did feel like a charmed life when I was on the road with Led Zeppelin. I felt like I was the one place on the globe where I would have dreamed of being if I couldn't have been there. And it was a very private joy because the band let us in. We traveled with the band. We stood on stage with the band and felt the stage rumble with them, lived through Jimmy Page's various tour dramas. You know, he broke his finger on the 75 tour right before the tour and couldn't play Dazed and Confused, which was the song even more than Stairway to Heaven at the time that people wanted to hear.
Sure.
And I think he was like getting shots into his finger, but it wasn't quite working, and he was playing just well enough. And everybody wondered every night if he was going to play Dazed and Confused. And he kept saying, no, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. And then at Madison Square Garden, which was the next time after Song Remains the Same, Led Zeppelin played, he was in the middle of the show and had a bottleneck on his finger, threw it down and said, I want to play Dazed and Confused. And they played a 45-minute version of Dazed and Confused. And nobody went streaming for the aisles. Nobody went to the bathroom. It was such a fan crowd. They all knew that he hadn't been playing Dazed and Confused. Right. They knew about Jimmy's finger. It was such a personal experience. I think rarely has that kind of situation been duplicated in the fan bases that you know that have existed since. Maybe with the Dead and Fish or people like that.
The Allman Brothers.
The Allman Brothers, definitely.
Amazing.
So I feel very privileged to have been there, and I was surprised they asked me to write liner notes for the release of Song Remains the Same. And so I just wrote some tour memories down, and they said, "Yeah, this is great."
Cameron?
But I signed. I remember I signed the liner notes, Cameron Crowe, Rolling Stone, and the only editing change that they made was they took out Rolling Stone, because Led Zeppelin always felt incredibly dissed by Rolling Stone, and they kind of took me on tour in spite of the fact that I wrote for Rolling Stone. They hated Rolling Stone. So that was the only editing change they made in the liner notes.
It's kind of cool, though. You're standing there on your own merits.
It was kind of cool. I was like, yeah, I'm good with this change.
Well, Cameron, I'm going to let you go. I know you've got a lot of writing to do.
Yeah.
And Hollywood awaits what the next thing is going to be. But before I go, I'm going to ask you the same question that was asked to me on the street on Hollywood Boulevard by Paramount's marketing team for the Vanilla Sky promotional website. Ironically, after I'd just spoken to Andy Fisher, who works in your office.
Yeah.
Of all the experiences you've enjoyed in your life, which remains the most memorable of all?
Of all the experiences in my life, most memorable has got to be, well, it would have changed every year, I think. But now having kids, it would have to be the birth of our twins, which is the kind of answer that, 4 years ago or something I would have heard or read and said, yeah, right. But I was slow to kind of accept the idea that this was actually going to happen, that we were going to have kids, and then when it happened, it was like being given an amazing gift that you just really didn't expect. So beyond all the incredible stuff that sort of happened creatively in meeting Nancy, I would say like having the kids, really, that's been the experience.
That's wonderful. Cameron, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate this opportunity.
Cool, Colie.
You take care.
You too.